Hello everyone, Pastor Wagner again. Welcome to my weekly video blog. This morning I would like to talk to you about how to refute atheists with nothing more than reason and an iPhone. I've done plenty of reading in my few years of apologetics books on the existence of God. I've certainly studied it out in the scripture quite a bit. I've had the opportunity to debate and discuss these things with atheists over the years. And my experience has been that a lot of the arguments for the existence of God, though they may be interesting, though they may be true, many of them are very complicated. And you read them and it just makes your brain sweat, and you read them over and over again, and you finally have a good comprehension of it, and then you go to try to tell somebody else and you can't even remember the argument because it was so complicated. And I've been to groups where we've met with atheists and we've debated these issues and we've tackled a lot of these different arguments, and my experience is that most of the time people just spin their wheels and you really never get anywhere. Nobody really gets pinned down on any one topic, and it just seems like you just go in circles and nobody gets anywhere. And my experience has been the best arguments many times for anything, but especially for this topic, are the simplest arguments. Those are the best ones. My favorite argument is the argument from design. And I'm just going to give you this morning just a brief, simple example of the argument from design and bring it home for you. And that's why I said that I'm going to use reason, nothing more than reason, and an iPhone. The argument from design really is the argument that the Scripture sets forth as the best one. It says in Romans 1 and verse 20, "For the invisible things of him from the creation of the world are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even his eternal power and Godhead, so that they are without excuse." So the things that are made show God's the invisible things of him from the creation of the world. They clearly show. They clearly show him. It says in Psalm 19 that the heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament showeth his handiwork. So the very creation itself declares and demands that there is an infinite, wise, and intelligent, and powerful God who created all of it. That's obvious. But just to give you an example, though, and this is an old argument. I'm sure you've heard a variation of this before. This is certainly not original to me. But let's just say you're walking down the sidewalk, and let's just say this is back in 2007, before the iPhone came out, right before the iPhone was released. Nobody knew of it. Nobody knew what it was going to be. You're walking down the sidewalk, and there lays this device, this iPhone that you've never seen before. And you pick it up, and you start flipping through it, and you think, wow, this thing is incredible. It's extremely complex. It can do all kinds of things that I've never even fathomed a device could do before. And you pick it up, maybe you even pull it apart, and you look at the circuitry in it, and you're thinking, this thing is incredibly complex. I would just love to know who designed and created this thing. So anybody with an IQ over probably 30 or 40 could just look at the complexity alone of an iPhone, just the complexity, knowing nothing about it, how it might have been manufactured, anything about the technology of it, and just look at the complexity and say, there is no doubt in my mind that this thing was designed and created by somebody. Nobody, not even an imbecile, would walk down the road, walk down the sidewalk, pick up an iPhone and say, wow, this is pretty neat. Apparently there must have been an explosion in a factory somewhere in a land far, far away, and all the parts just kind of came together and formed this iPhone. Nobody would think that. Furthermore, you'd be an imbecile to think, oh, well, it probably happened over billions of years, and slowly on this sidewalk, particles of dust were laid down, and in a certain order, and just by random chance and process, eventually this iPhone just came into existence. Nobody, not even an idiot, would think something like that. Now, when it comes to the existence of life, oh yeah, that seems very plausible and real, right? But nobody would think that when you saw an iPhone. Now, what I would do is I would say there's a principle where you reason from the lesser to the greater. If you'd pick up an iPhone and you could know for certain, for absolute certain, that this iPhone had a designer and a creator for the sole purpose of its complexity, for the sole reason of its complexity. Reasoning from the lesser to the greater, you could reason that life itself is far more complex than an iPhone. I mean, human life obviously is. Any life, even a single cell, is far more complex than an iPhone. And you know how we know this? Because human beings can create iPhones. Human beings can't create life. We never have, and we probably never will. We've been working at this for a long, long time. Millions of manpower, or man hours, and billions of dollars into this very science, and we can't create life, not even close to it. We can't even fully understand human life or the human brain or the human eye or anything complex like that. So if you could reason that an iPhone must absolutely need a designer and a creator because of its complexity, then therefore, reasoning from the lesser to the greater, you can absolutely conclude that human life, or any life, must have a designer and a creator sheerly because of its complexity. And now you're back to a God. Somebody had to have created it. Human beings obviously didn't create themselves. Somebody had to have created it, and it goes back to a God. Now, with the iPhone, maybe a person would conclude, if they're a superstitious person, that this iPhone just popped into existence. It popped into existence. It was a miraculous event where it came from another dimension, it came from outer space, or God created it and just plopped it on the sidewalk. But however you determine that this happened, it still was designed and created by someone or something somewhere. And it's the same way with life. Life must, because of its sheer complexity alone, have a designer and a creator. And I found that this is the best argument to use with atheists. And as I said in last week's video blog, present them with this argument, you define the terms of the argument, present them with this little story of the iPhone, and then just ask them one simple question. Does the complexity of an iPhone demand that it has a designer and a creator? And force them to answer that question. And if they won't answer that question, go no further. They're left with, they have two options, yes or no. If they say no, it does not demand, the complexity does not demand that it has a designer and a creator, then you can simply say, I'm sorry, you don't have either the intellectual honesty or the intellectual capacity to discuss matters that are of greater complexity than this. If you don't understand the complexity of an iPhone, you certainly can't understand the complexity of life. So I'm not going to talk to you about who the creator of the iPhone is if I can't even talk. I'm not going to talk to you about who the creator of human life is if I can't even talk to you about who the creator of an iPhone is. So if they say no, the complexity does not demand that it has a designer, then you have them. And just quite frankly, make them feel stupid. Make them feel dumb, because they are dumb. If they don't understand that an iPhone has a creator and a designer, they are dumb. So make them feel that way. Don't feel bad about it. If they do say that the complexity of an iPhone demands that it has a creator and a designer, you've got them. Reasoning from the lesser to the greater. If a lesser thing must have a designer and a creator because of its complexity, therefore anything that is more complex must have a designer and a creator based on its complexity. So anyway, that's how you can take a little bit of reason in an iPhone and refute an atheist. Thanks for listening. I hope this is beneficial, and I'll see you again next week, Lord willing.